Welcome to The Beat, everyone. I'm Ari Melber. The political debacle saddling Donald Trump over the course of this weekend and boiling over tonight is widely viewed on the right as his biggest problem with his base in this young presidency. A quote, huge risk to his hold on the party, even the coming midterms. That's from his allies. Headlines screaming about a quote, rebellion or revolt against Trump. A politician who's certainly benefited from loyalty and a type of perception of almost lockstep, unassailable MAGA loyalty is now finding it clearly in danger. The president's broken vow that he would release all this Jeffrey Epstein material and the Trump administration's quite obvious mishandling of aspects of this case, and certainly the messaging, something they're usually kind of good at, has boomeranged. The false statements, busted claims from the president on down to his attorney general. All of this has become the problem on the right. It was the controversy at a MAGA gathering just this weekend that had plenty of bold-faced MAGA names.
How many of you are not satisfied with the results of the investigation?
What I'm getting at is at some point, we want answers at some point.
Yeah, answer the questions. That's it.
I mean,
Who went to Epstein Islands? Who specifically went on the plane? Who stayed for more than a night?
I don't think they're telling us the truth about Epstein.
I will not rest until we go full Jan 6 committee on the Jeffrey Epstein files.
I supported Donald Trump in this last election. Yes, he did just actively cover up a giant child rapist ring.
Jeffrey Epstein was working on behalf of Intel Services, probably not American.
Release all the Epstein files, no matter the consequences.
There is no way that we are going to act like the proven harm and abuse that Jeffrey Epstein has caused never happened.
And we have every right to ask, on whose behalf was he working?
If you want the full release of documents, the special prosecutor gets it. And here's why. Epstein is a key that picks the lock on so many things.
It went on and on and on like that. And if you live in that universe of politics or you follow that kind of media, what you saw there is not new. That's a crescendo over the past week and the past years, because the conspiracies and the content that power so many MAGA voices for their audiences, for their online profits, and for their political heat make this particular topic an obvious public betrayal, one that they cannot abide, not in front of their audiences. People have been promised a payoff for many years on this one. So now President Trump and his top aides are engulfed by the very kind of conspiracy theory that they spent so many years promoting, apparently without a lot of forethought about how it would land if they were in charge again. And we're seeing calls for a so-called accountability for their own leaders who claimed one thing and then did the opposite. If you want to fact check Pam Bondi's claim that she had the Epstein client list on her desk, which is one of those very literal statements. It's not like someday we'll get accountability or we'll learn more. It's, I have this well-described client list from this now deceased sex trafficker on my desk, she said. And that wasn't true. And the fact check in this case for that is in the memo her office released on behalf of the entire Justice Department. So you can see how, whether or not you see this as partly a runaway conspiracy theory or content farming debacle, it also involves whether government officials are telling the truth. And on this one, there appears to be an overlap between the test that journalists and independent accountability professionals and inspectors general tend to apply and what the MAGA faithful want. What you heard there, answer the question, are you telling the truth? And should there be accountability for that? Now, the conference you saw those clips from is from a normally pro-Trump group, Turning Points USA. And you saw the big names, Ingram, Kelly, Tucker Carlson, a lot of Fox veterans, Steve Bannon, who still has a very active relationship inside this administration, warning them that they must change course, that this cannot just be quieted down or covered up, to use the sinister version of how so much of this story on Epstein has played out over the years. Now, Trump's DOJ famously basically said, nope, nothing more to see here. No more information or evidence to be given, and the questions they had very loudly pushed were now not going to be answered with the memo I mentioned. In a sign that Trump is concerned over the weekend, he posted a fairly long kind of defense, but also pleading with his followers to just move on. The Times summarized it this way: back Bondi in dispute over Epstein inquiry. That's the President of the United States telling people, please just accept my Attorney General. I can't have a change there right now. And the MAGA faithful, for once, said no, partly because of what I just told you about and the clips I showed you from that conference, and partly because this has been years in the making. They didn't say, okay, yes, sir, we love our leader. He got, in online jargon, ratioed, where there are far more negative comments than likes and shares. And that's not the open internet. That's Truth Social. You know who uses that. Michael Flynn, Trump's first national security advisor, posted, please understand the Epstein affair is not going away. Or take the Wall Street Journal, Fox News' sister outlet. Now Trump says, forget Jeffrey Epstein. He urges MAGA to give up the conspiracy tale that they note he promoted, along with allies like Pam Bondi, FBI officials Kash Patel and Jan Bongino, who are now basically all clashing with each other over the handling of this Epstein memo. Now take this together and you might say, is this still the top story in America? Is there a lot of other really important stuff going on? And the answer is yes. Indeed, many nights we're talking about ICE raids and foreign policy and the trade war. And yet the political reaction, which could imperil the leadership of the FBI or the DOJ, which is always a big story, matters to a lot of people, regardless of the reason. Political reaction is part of it. The other part is the MAGA faithful are going through a kind of truth-based process that they sometimes have not done for other real-world broken Trump promises. So what you saw there, that template, hey, you lied. Was this all just a way to trick us or get our votes or get our money in the case of these media merchants? And how do we feel about that? And should someone pay for the lie? Something you often hear Trump critics say. We're now hearing that from the MAGA faithful, but just on the Epstein issue, which has been so thoroughly programmed. So I will mention to the MAGA faithful watching and people kind of making sense of all this, there are other very real world policies where Trump also made vows. He said he would release the Epstein files, and his AG said she would, and they didn't. He also said he'd build the wall. He'd get 90 trade deals in 90 days. That deadline we reached last week, they have about 2. He did say he'd end inflation and the Ukraine war, Mideast peace, lower grocery prices. These are things that affect real people that have not been done. And yet politics is usually fluid, not static. Comes at you fast. And if they don't contain this, it is possible that having popped a bubble, 1 out of 20 or 1 out of 10 or even 1 out of 5, according to some of these MAGA leaders who are concerned, 1 out of 5 people who voted for Trump might start saying, wait a minute, if he lied about this, and to them it's a big government conspiracy and it does involve an underlying case of a horrific sex trafficker. If he lied about this, what else is he lying about? And what in this democracy do we do about it? We take those questions to New York Times Magazine writer Emily Bazelon, a legal reporter, and there's a lot of law in the handling and mishandling of this. And on the media side, Michael Greenbaum, a media correspondent for the New York Times. Full disclosure, he writes about media, including television networks. His new book is about print, though. It's Empire of the Elite Inside Condé Nast, the media dynasty that reshaped America. And as we say in the biz, it drops tomorrow. Congrats on the book.
Thanks so much.
Emily, I'm going to start with you as someone who's followed this closely and been a hometown expert and analyst for us. There are serious legal questions here. And yet some of the freak out is about things that are unknown or unproven, but that Trump and Bondi said they would reveal.
Right. There's supposed to be this client list, as you said. Bondi claimed that to have it on her desk. And this was really built up during the campaign, this idea that the Biden administration was hiding something. And, you know, you can understand why people think there could be a conspiracy here. Even if you're not conspiracy minded, you have this super wealthy guy. He is accused of sexually abusing many, many girls and women. He knows a lot of famous people. There have been allegations of other celebrities who've been involved with him, and including Donald Trump, a former friend of Epstein's. So this became a kind of article of faith with a lot of Trump supporters that the Biden administration was hiding something. And as soon as their people got into the Justice Department, they would learn the truth. It would all be revealed. And now the rug has been pulled out from under them. And they're super unhappy about that.
Yeah, they're upset. And a lot of people might normally on the MAGA right media space deal with Trump and give him a pass on a lot of things. But this almost seems, Michael, like they can't. Megyn Kelly, of course, has that Fox history, but she does her own digital work. And this was how she sounded this weekend.
Who have you seen? Pam Bondi. She has never missed an opportunity to go on television and dangle sweet nothings that might be coming your way. Try to lead you to believe that she's got it. It's on her desk. It's coming tomorrow. You're going to see something on Epstein. And it was a tease. So you either believe that Pam Bondi was telling the truth then or that she's telling the truth now, but both cannot be true. She was either lying when she went on Fox News all those times saying, I've got it, we're looking at it, wait until you see it, it's horrible. Or she's lying in her 2-page memo that they released on a Sunday night.
Well, I think we should think about just how rare it is for this level of dissent to infiltrate the information silos that MAGA faithful follow. I mean, you're seeing, in fact, that turning point, the fact that the Manosphere podcasts that are so central to a lot of listeners in the MAGA universe are hearing people like Megyn Kelly being so harsh on this administration. I mean, it's the first time it's happened, certainly since Trump was inaugurated for the second time. And, you know, to Emily's point, you know, Steve Bannon said Epstein is the key to everything. I mean, think about the aspects of this story. The fundamental core of Trump's appeal is that he's going to take on the establishment for you. He's going in there, he's digging up the deep states. You're finally back in power. And what is Epstein if not a story about an establishment protecting one of their own, the power elite engaging in these perverted, disgusting acts? And here's Trump saying, not just, you know, there's no file list, but hey, let's move on. He said at the cabinet meeting last week, are people still talking about this? And he's discovering that that's not a good way to get your supporters to move off a topic by saying there's nothing to see here.
Yeah, and here he was during the campaign on Fox. This is 2024. Take a look.
It's just very strange for a lot
Would you
of people.
declassify the 9/11 files?
Yeah.
Would you declassify the Epstein files?
Yeah, I would.
All right.
Yes, I would. I think that less so because, you know, you don't know it. You don't want to affect people's lives if it's phony stuff in there because there's a lot of phony stuff with that whole world. But I think I would, or at least
Do you think that would restore trust? Help restore trust?
Yeah, I don't know about Epstein so much as I do the others. Certainly about the way he died. It would be interesting to find out what happened there because that was a weird situation and the cameras didn't happen to be working, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, I'd go a long way toward that one. The other stuff I would definitely do the January 6th.
You get a classic Trump dance there, but he's reacting to media where this was huge to them. He makes an odd distinction between the in-custody death, which is suspicious. We've asked questions about that from the start, and then the history of the alleged crimes, some of them convicted. But what do you see there in this interplay between the media pushing this, him benefiting from the storyline, but now wanting it to go away now that he's in charge?
Well, it's a bit of the dog that caught the car, right? And we're absolutely seeing this with Dan Bongino. I mean, this is so striking to me. I mean, here's someone who rises to fame as a right-wing podcaster and a Fox News host for a while by, you know, trying to sell these conspiracy theories out to the public. Now he's the deputy director of the FBI. He was on Fox and Friends whining about the fact that he essentially saying, I have to work so hard. I'm stuck in a windowless room all day. Now he's got all his fans revolting against him. I mean, it turns out that it's a lot easier to commentate on and kind of be the armchair quarterback as it is to actually be in the room and, you know, be in charge of these federal agencies. And I think we're seeing this across a lot of this administration. This is kind of what happens when you get media stars. You know, we've got about 20 ex-Fox personalities in the administration. Suddenly they have real responsibility and they're discovering it's not that easy.
Yeah, and they lived in a content machine, right, that had a storyline that was separate from or ahead of whatever the facts may be or what the government has. And it's interesting, Megyn Kelly seems very knowledgeable about the process of what she called dangling information to get views. So wherever she learned about that, she was on that point, but accusing Pam Bondi of doing it the wrong way. And so you're kind of in this, as you said, it's like you've got all these folks looking back and forth at each other through this media chasm that is how they govern. It's the reality show governance taken to the extreme. Both of you are going to stay. We have our shortest break, 90 seconds. Emily, I want to ask you about the law of this, and I want to show also Trump and the potosphere, again, where he really sealed his fate, agreeing with everyone that this was a big deal. We'll be right back.
a huge PR disaster for the Trump administration.
Many people in the MAGA movement who say they feel betrayed.
Ticking time bomb. This story won't die.
And that's just how we're hearing about it on Fox. We're back with Emily and Michael. I want to play another podcast that's quite popular, not just on the right, I think with young people, business people, but also in MAGA, and that's Lex Friedman. This was also height of the campaign general election, how Trump was hitting this.
It's just very strange for a lot of people that the list of clients that went to the island has not been made public.
Yeah, it's very interesting, isn't it? Probably will be. Yeah, I'd certainly take a look at it. I'd be inclined to do the Epstein. I'd have no problem with it.
Emily, just remind everyone how this works legally. Typically in complex, large criminal investigations, while material does come to light sometimes at trial, there is not a randomized release of unverified material.
Right, because you want to usually be careful about who you're implicating in criminal activity. And also, if you're building a case against actual criminals, then you want to make sure that you're not opening it up to public scrutiny too early in a way that could, for example, pollute the jury pool. And so prosecutors normally marshal their evidence. If they're following the rules, turn it over to the defense before trial, and then it gets fully aired at the trial. So this idea that you're just going to release all of this, if it does have serious implications for other people's guilt or innocence, is pretty, let's use the word, unusual.
Yeah, and legally, do you believe the DOJ memo now? I mean, it kind of just restates what the prior findings were. It doesn't prove or show some great query. They could have done a bigger probe. What do you think of it?
I mean, it just seemed like they were not making a compelling case that they had gone through this big investigation, trying to kind of get rid of this, right? I mean, Trump seems to want to move on. And that memo seems like a classic, let's just move on from this and pretend it wasn't the big deal that we said it was earlier.
Yeah, it's really striking. I mean, there's a way without revealing secrets to show some work. If you look at the redacted sections of the Mueller report, and they talk about we did this many interviews and whatnot.
And you redact things.
Yeah, this didn't feel like that to me. I want to get to your book.
I want to keep talking about MAGA.
Look at him smiling. Empire of the Elite. A lot of people, if they don't know your face, they know your byline because you've written these great pieces for the New York Times about media, new media, about politics. You had a great piece about sort of the weird Trump era of the White House Correspondents' Dinner. So I bet a lot of our MSNBC viewers have at least read your prose. But this is a full book-length look at a kind of a golden and bygone era. Explain.
Yeah, it's a history of Condé Nast, which is the publisher of Vogue and Vanity Fair and The New Yorker and GQ and all these glossy magazines that kind of guided American aspirations for over 50 years. It's also about the moment of media gatekeepers and kind of how they have collapsed. There once was a time when everyone looked to print magazines. That was kind of how you got the culture. It landed in your living room every month and beautifully packaged, tell you what movie to see, what books to read. And now we have thousands of social media channels and even some linear TV channels that keep telling us, giving us guides to all that. So it's about kind of a glamorous era, the 80s, 90s, New York City, when Graydon Carter and Anna Wintour were at the height of their powers, and why it was that world is slowly fading away.
Yeah, I got to read the review copy. That's not really a flex, but we get copies sometimes a couple weeks early. If you're a big enough nerd, you're like, I got it early. But I thought even apart from being interested in journalism, you captured both that era, the culture, and how magazines like Vanity Fair and Vogue were once, as you say, taking New York or Paris and distributing that to those in the rest of the world in a very bespoke fashion. And now some of them have been reduced to just keeping up with the Kardashians.
Yeah, and I think that, it's a fun history. There's a lot of stories about editors taking the Concorde to Europe and the way expense accounts were something that us in the media today can't even imagine. But it is also, Condé Nast is a great way to look at American culture. I mean, these magazines really reflected what elites were interested in, how the WASP establishment yielded to a new class in the 80s and 90s. And so I've tried to make it a cultural history, and I think it's can be some good counter-programming to today's news.
Yeah, it's a different vibe. Congratulations. You say the Concorde, you know what Jay-Z said? I'm international now on the Concorde. Numbers don't lie. Check the scoreboard. A dated reference because there is no Concorde.
Alas.
Michael, Emily. Thanks to both of you. The book, Empire the Elite, Inside Condé Nast, the Media Dynasty That Reshaped America, drops at midnight. You can get it now online. Still ahead, Trump officials facing these questions about what happens when you gut emergency services.
The New York Times is reporting that thousands of calls from flood victims to FEMA call centers went unanswered in the middle of this ongoing disaster. Why did it take so long to extend those contracts?
And Trump's border czar under fire for seeming to admit what could be unlawful stops. And Stacey Abrams joins me coming up. We'll be right back.
ICE officers and Border Patrol, they don't need probable cause to walk up to somebody, briefly detain them, and question them. Or get articulable facts based on their location, their occupation, their physical appearance, their actions.
So-called border czar Tom Homan with a kind of admission saying that he thinks agents can target people without the legally required probable cause. And he mentions appearance. And while there can be a holistic or total way that investigators, detectives, and federal agents review what could be a suspect, if you're targeting only physical appearance, it sounds like racial profiling. And there are accusations wider than just that interview about not only that problem, but whether this also will impact U.S. citizens.
Look how you got my hand. You're twisting that shit, but I'm American, bro. Yo, these guys are literally based off of skin color. He's still late, bro. I can show you. I got a new ID, man. Hey, yo, what the? Look. Hold on the car. Hold on the car. Hey, these are illegal citizens, you pieces of shit. You.
If that doesn't look like the way to peacefully deal with American citizens, you can see why scenes like this have many questioning whether this is the beginning, the start of efforts to use federal agents like a police state. This scene shows the tear gassing of protesters and others during the controversy around an attempted immigration raid at a farm that turned out was just doing legal work, meaning it's not clear whether this was the right use of force or who they were going after if it was a legal farm. Then you have other face-offs in our militarized scenes where a tank and other armory is being used again inside American cities. A Border Patrol helicopter also landing in the middle of fields. Reports say paramedics requested to treat the injuries. Some of the people running away included children who were in that field. Now, again, the fact that the federal government has broad powers to land and do things doesn't mean this is good use of these powers. Inside a California medical clinic, there were staff in scrubs that clashed with agents that pursued an individual that they said was undocumented. And so the question is, are we seeing overstepping, even errors, which is a part of policing, and we cover that sometimes. Indeed, police advocates emphasize that all industries have some error rate. Hospitals and nurses have error rates. Are these just some errors caught on camera, or are they part of a wider, nationally obvious federal effort by the Trump administration to up the use of power, up the fear tactics, and scare people? Consider the detention of other individuals that actually don't have much to do with ICE, but rather the oversight of ICE. Democrats who asked hard questions or showed up to do oversight in person have been manhandled and in some cases arrested. One case dropped, another continues. The resistance also is growing in tandem with what looks like this overreach, the No Kings protest. Now the Post reports that LA activists are pivoting for tactics to deal with what they view as a longer fight, stationing themselves outside of places where people are being picked up. Tens of thousands expected this Thursday for what's being called the Good Trouble Lives On protest on the 5th anniversary of the passing of the much beloved civil rights leader, John Lewis. Over 50,000 have RSVP'd. Event organizers say they expect 1,500 gatherings, large, small, and medium, around the country. This is also what's happening, the push and the push back. And with that in mind, we want to broaden out and welcome Stacey Abrams, a guest who has faced all kinds of pushback and also fought for voting rights and civil rights. She's my guest here live on set next.
We haven't had a king since 1776. We want to keep it that way.
We need to stand together as a people to realize that this is democracy. It's not for kings.
My dad used to say, the greatness of America is the right to protest for rights.
A protest movement that is growing, whether you always hear about it, whether it's the national story among the DC pundits, it's happening all over the country. And with that in mind, I want to bring in Stacey Abrams, accomplished lawyer, political activist, former Georgia State representative. Her new book, Coded Justice, drops tomorrow. It's book night on the beat. Summer reads. We're going to get to that. But I want to start with, what are we seeing around the country, the scale of these protests? How do you view it? Does it matter?
So I've recently been talking about the 10 steps to autocracy, the fact that we seem to think that we're immune to what has happened to other democracies that have fallen into the hands of autocrats. And one of the key pushbacks against autocracy is protest, because the way autocracy works, it convinces you to be silent because you're afraid of losing something. You're afraid of the consequences of lifting your voice. You're afraid that if you point out what's happening, it could come for you next. Protest is the counter narrative. It says that I see what you're doing, and I believe I have not only the right, but the responsibility to point out that what you are doing is wrong. But there's a cost to it. And I think what is so important in this moment is that we're seeing people protest not simply in inchoate ways, but in very directed ways, saying that illegal behavior by those who are holding authority should not be tolerated, even if the same authority is willing to send armed agents and Marines after you. It is critical that we protest in this moment. And I know it can feel sometimes inadequate to the task, but there is nothing that hits the ear of an autocrat sharper than the sound of people saying, we can see you and we refuse to submit.
And when you put it that way, we've seen a lot of people alarmed, and we've seen evidence. This goes against the narrative, but younger people and people engaged online saying, wait, if this is what's happening, I'm against it. And some of them may not have been as politically active a decade ago or Trump's first run. How do you compare that awakening to some of the tactics that seem designed to tell some part of the country, don't worry about this. This is just for undocumented immigrants. Or maybe this is just for people in cities that aren't where you live, or some of it more directly racist, although I'm careful to say it's not all explicitly stated as such. How does a effective movement deal with that if some people are going, oh, well, maybe that will never hit me. It'll never, if that's how they're looking at it.
So again, going back to the 10 steps, part of understanding the architecture of autocracy is recognizing that whether you believe it or not, you're one of its victims. And so step 4 is when you break government so it doesn't work. Yeah, you think you're fine, but when you're a farmer who can't get access to your loans because a Doge worker now has the ability to individually and independently cancel your loan or delay your payments, you might be in the middle of North Dakota, but you are now being affected by autocracy. Or if you are a member of a protected class because this nation has made bad choices about your right to exist, it matters to you if something is happening. And so part of our responsibility is to recognize that no matter who they're coming after first, they're coming after you next. And our responsibility, those of us who see it happening, is to articulate what it looks like, not in the abstract, not using words like autocracy, but really connecting the dots between the actions being taken and the effect it's going to have on you, and the follow-on effect, which is that when they've gotten you to submission, they're going after your neighbors, they're going after your children, they're going after your future.
Barack Obama was quoted at a fundraiser recently talking about the need to have some more courage. The law firms, the elites. He was speaking to an elite crowd because it was some sort of fundraiser donor crowd. Where does that fit in? Because the level of courage asked of even wealthy, connected elites is not what we saw in the 70s. This tribute reference to John Lewis, it's not asking everyone to get their head beat in. It's just asking them to stand up.
I was recently speaking at an event in New York a few days ago about DEI. And the question was, well, there's a company that could lose a major contract with the federal government if they don't submit. And, doing the right thing has a cost. To your point, the cost is not as heavy as it has been in years past. But when you decide that the cost to you is an extra couple of pennies for your shareholder, but at the expense of one of your workers or one of your employees or one of your customers losing their constitutional rights, then you have to decide, do you worship the market or do you worship morality?
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. I want to get, as promised, to Code of Justice. Tell us about this book and what will political junkies who might be watching the news get out of it, and what else is in there for people who are going to get a different style, different version of your voice.
So this is about AI and how it interferes or can enhance our lives. And the whole point is something that's intended for good can go horribly wrong. It's a question of ambition versus intention. I talk about AI, diversity, healthcare, veterans. So there's something in there for everyone. But more than anything, it's a conversation about we have these tools at our disposal. The question is, what are we willing to build with them, and what are we willing to sacrifice? And in this case, it's a question of, do we want good intent or do we want ambition to win? And I invite you to read the book to find out who gets the upper hand.
There we go. Code of Justice by Stacey Abrams. Get it wherever books are sold. Thanks for being here. And up next, we have FEMA under fire because all of these government cuts may not be the solution. We'll be back. Turning to the devastating floods out of Texas, we can report 132 people have died. More than 160 remain unaccounted for, feeding the concerns as the days go by about just how deadly this entire disaster has been. Under the Trump administration, the DHS secretary was discussing what we do as a country in these situations. Who or what is the backstop? It has traditionally in the modern era always been the federal government, not, say, a local city or the local police. You need federal resources for these kind of emergencies. And yet those are the resources that the Trump-Musk administration has talked about cutting. Now she's walking that back.
I'll also be signing an executive order to begin the process of fundamentally reforming and overhauling FEMA, or maybe getting rid of FEMA. I think, frankly, FEMA is not good.
We're going to eliminate FEMA.
The president recognizes that FEMA should not exist the way that it always has been. It needs to be redeployed in a new way, and that's what we did during this response.
Bottom line, we've gone from hearing about maybe eliminating and all but getting rid of FEMA as a, quote, bad thing, to realizing, and now one of the first big deadly tests, we had the fires and we have this terrible flooding, suddenly a different tune. There's also scrutiny over a rule that requires that spending over $100,000 at any time has to be directly approved by the secretary. That could slow down immediate response and search and rescue when it requires spending. And there's evidence that FEMA missed thousands of calls in the days following the flood. Basically, the majority of people calling the disaster assistance line, where you do want to have someone on the other end of the line in a disaster, in an emergency, they weren't even there. Workers weren't on the job. There was one anonymous source telling the New York Times that the agency had already fired hundreds of people, the so-called contractors, who handle the call volume. And let's be clear, some days they might just be sitting there and someone could call that government waste. But of course, when it comes to a disaster or who's on the other end of a 911 call, you want extra people. You want to err on the side of a ready government, not an understaffed one. Here's how that conversation's going.
Why did it take so long to extend those contracts?
It's just false. Those contracts were in place. Nobody,
it didn't take 5 days.
No employees were off of work. Every one of them was answering calls.
If everyone was answering calls and the majority of calls were not answered in a deadly flood like this, then obviously there aren't enough people to answer the calls. Another DHS veteran says we are not witnessing a reimagining of federal disaster response. We are watching its demolition. We will keep covering this space, and hopefully we could be a country that governs these problems in advance of deadly disasters. Now, we're going to fit in a break. We're going to take a look at a different part of the MAGA Epstein meltdown that's haunting Trump tonight. A lot of it has to do with digital media. You know, this last presidential election really showed the rising power of new media. Kamala Harris choosing some podcasts over even the biggest TV shows, just as today's political meltdown over Jeffrey Epstein is being spurred more by these MAGA voices online than, say, Fox, the White House on defense, because the podcasters have impact. But remember, these trends are broader than politics. Actors who once limited their interviews to the Tonight Show can be seen eating spicy wings and chatting online, while radio and TV have given way to hit cultural shows like Drink Champs a raw, authentic talk show where liquor might play the role that wings play on that other one. Artists seem comfortable and pretty much delighted to chat with artist and entrepreneur Nore and DJ EFN and their crew, who were recently dubbed two of the most powerful podcasters by The Hollywood Reporter. The show is iconic online and across the culture.
I did not realize he was talking about the real Olympics. So I'm like, what Olympics you thought he was? I don't know.
After the Oscars, I just shut it down and I did a real deep dive. Those rats are like, man, are you kidding me?
The New York City Marathon is probably my biggest goal that I'm ever like, you know, and nothing can make me better but me. Yes, right. I'm a let go. You can put me together piece by piece. I don't even feel that going backstage when it's calm is actually normal.
I was once backstage at a Wu-Tang show. Complete chaos.
I treat life like a fast car, low on my speed. I try to chill and sell more records than greed. You let me do it again, do it to win. Last album was an 8, this one is a 10.
Let me do it again. Do it to win. Last album was an 8. This one is a 10. That is Nore, the rapper, the artist, the media entrepreneur. And as we saw just there in the clips from your show, it doesn't even in the best way feel like a show. It feels like we get to hang out with you guys.
Thank you. Because that's exactly what we're trying to do. We're trying to just make people, you know, come hang out with us and, you know, chill and damn, I really thought you were right here. I really thought you were right here. But we like that's what we're doing, you know, Ari.
Because you set a vibe. I mean, right now, here we are. We got the glass table, we got the cameras, we got the lighting, right? I try to bring something out of people, but immediately kind of changes the mood. There, it feels like we're coming in. And I mentioned the other shows because you were very early setting this template. Other people are doing it. Great. There's something authentic about it, though. It feels like we're really hanging out. Like even when you said, some people try to sound smart all the time. You said when Snoop told you he was going to go with this Olympics, you said you thought it was like some other Olympics. Like you're really sharing.
you know, not only Snoop, but Jay actually sent me, and this is, I've never really, I said this, but I've never said it. Jay actually sent me the most expensive car in the world.
Jay-Z?
Yes.
Okay.
And he owned it.
Okay.
But he didn't want to tell me to say that you can actually say this thing. It was the worst thing I've ever done. As a podcaster, as a journalist, he sent it to me. And when he sent it to me, he wanted me to actually ask him. And I did.
About this car gift. Okay. And what does that mean?
You know, he has the most expensive car in the world.
I believe it. I didn't know, but I believe it.
And he sent it to me. And I'm like, I'm gonna what are we gonna say? We're gonna accommodate.
Yeah. So you didn't make it too big a deal out of it.
Yeah, I didn't say that, and it was a wonderful thing that I did.
Okay. All right. Well, it's a subtle flex. Before we get out of here, because we're at the end of the hour, clips just dropped. These are great artists. What do you think of the new album? And it's up against Bieber right now with the new music coming down.
Well, 1,000,000%. I love Clips, and I love the Bieber and Clips. I don't think that they should be.
You don't want to pit them together.
Yeah, I don't think that's it. But Clips album is phenomenal.
You love it. Yeah,
it's 1,000,000% phenomenal. Bieber album is phenomenal as well.
You've been spinning it.
But in a different world.
Now, I don't know how much you're on TikTok, but I'm going to show you real quick that there's a younger generation making their own videos, some of them really feeling what you're doing. Let's take a look.
Let's go.
Puerto Rican culture and history is not complete unless we are talking about this man.
Nah, you set him up. You set him up.
I don't see any skips on the songs. So you know what that means? It's a certified classic.
This man does not get enough credit for what he did for the culture.
What are you doing?
So I got a minute left here, but what do you think that new generations are discovering, not only your work, but of course through Drink Champs, they're learning about everything, and a lot of them are appreciating you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
How about that?
Well, did you know that you're on TikTok like that?
I've never been on TikTok, not once in my life.
Yeah.
But I'm going to do that. And Ari, you are my friend.
Respect.
I love you so much, but God damn it. Are you telling me that TikTokers?
That's TikTok, and it's younger medium for the most part. Yeah.
And they know who I am?
I just showed you.
Never knew that they knew who I am.
Yeah. Are we doing flowers? All right, there it is. Nori, Capone Noriega.
Yes.
CNN.
Are you going to end it with a lyric?
What kind of lyric you want?
I just feel like you going to end it with a lyric.
If you admire somebody, you should go ahead and tell them. People never get the flowers when they can still smell them. And you've been giving out flowers on that show. I love it. That's why I grew up watching the show, and you get your flowers here.
Yeah.
Hey.
Yo, Run Champs, just so y'all know, I'm running the New York City Marathon. And a lot of people don't understand how exclusive that is.
Yeah.
It's exclusive.
I'll tell you what we're going to do because I'm out of time. We're going to run a clip. I'm going to watch. We're going to run a clip with your time on it. Thanks for coming through.
Thank you.
Nori,
Salud.
remember, you can find us online at Ari Melber on social. That does it for the show tonight.